Hey YouTube, Magnum here, and today we're taking a look at Newage Mista, which is a masterpiece movie take on Dark of the Moon Soundwave. If you're new to my channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below, and here we go. In terms of accessories, we get a blaster, which is really nicely sculpted, really well painted, and has a nice touch of the gold detail on the inside of the barrel. It's got a standard masterpiece tab, will clip into both hands and is super secure. Now you also get Laserbeak and Ravage. Now Ravage actually comes in a separate box to the main figure, and my understanding is that you will only get him with this initial batch of this figure. So if future releases, future issues won't come with Ravage, so that is something to note. If we start with the positives, it's very similar on both figures. They're both highly articulate. So if we start with Laserbeak, the wings move here at this hinge, and also you can rotate them on the fans, the intakes. The neck is articulated at the base and on the head as well, so you can put them in lots of different poses. The tail moves, two places, points of articulation, and also the legs. So you can do lots of things with this figure. Very similarly, Ravage, I should say, is highly articulate. I mean, he moves all over. 2 points at the waist, the legs, at the top here, and at the knee, and at the feet. The tail is articulated, 2 points here, and also the jaw opens and closes. So great stuff all around in that sense. Lots of poses that you can pull there. In terms of paint finish, this is where it's interesting, because the figures are painted well where they are painted. So Laserbeak, silver here, red here, and these bits, and also on the eyes. The rest of it is just grey plastic. Ravage is nicely detailed with the gold in places, particularly on the eye, and the rest of it is kind of just flecked here and there, so it's kind of accented. So there isn't a massive amount of paint on these, but what there is just enough to give it a kind of premium look, even though the plastic itself is quite light. So it's very light, very thin feeling plastic, but it does just enough to give them a premium look. And when you couple that with the articulation, they look fantastic on the shelf, they really do. So overall, the accessories are very good. I think if I was going to be picky, I would have liked Laserbeak to attach to his arm in some way, but he does sit there very nicely nonetheless. So overall, great look to the accessories. Just a couple of niggly points, so 9 out of 10. So if we start with the head, it's on a ball and it's quite high up in the head, which means there's a really good range up and down. It's got a hinge at the bottom of the neck as well, so really good movement on the head. Arms, full rotation all the way around, really good extension out to the side, and then all the way up because of this hinge here, so that is good. It's got bicep swivel. It only has a 90-degree elbows, which is strange. It just feels like there's space to fit in an extra hinge there. So that's something to note. Hands have got full swivel, and each of the claws are individually articulated as well, so that's good. It's got waist swivel all the way around. There's no ab crunch. You could probably untab things to kind of do a kind of effect under there if you wanted to do that. For the legs, fully extend all the way to the front, all the way to the back, and all the way out to the side as well. You have to just manipulate this a little bit to do that. We've got a knee joint, 90 degrees, probably a little bit more than that actually, so that's good. Where this figure's disappointing is down on the feet. You've got an ankle rocker, and that's fine, but there's no real back or forth for the whole of the foot. There's this section here on a ball peg that you can manipulate, but this bit stays fixed. It's kind of all fused in this bit here, which is a shame because they could have put a hinge in there. And I just think it just means you can't really do much with the feet without losing stability if you're trying to kind of make him move, as it were. Now then, the character in the film is quite stocky and upright, so you probably won't be doing those kind of poses, but I think that is quite limiting for a figure certainly of this quality. It's a bit of an omission. So overall on posability, lots of good bits, but there's a couple of little flaws in there, so 7 out of 10. So paint wise, the figure is absolutely sensational. It's got an immaculate paint scheme, really well applied all over, and it's really quite clever what they've done. You've got the clean silver look from the panels from the car, and that is offset by the inner bot bits, which are covered in this kind of burnished, oily kind of weathered look here and there. And what that does is it just brings to life the kind of snarling Bayverse, oily kind of bot look. It looks like it's walked off the screen. It's really, really well done, really clever. You've got a fantastic sculpt. I think the face looks amazing. Sculpted detail everywhere. Everywhere's got detail that is really well painted. It's sensational in that respect. Again, the cleanup is fantastic. All of the panels from the car are dealt with quite neatly. There's no backpack issue or anything like that. Only one minor point of cleanup are these two screws here. I think they've cleverly kind of concealed all the screw work, if you like, everywhere else, but they've just left these two very visible in quite a prominent place, so that is unfortunate. Build wise, he's made of sturdy, solid stuff, but because he looks like he's made of metal, you expect him to have die-cast heft, and he doesn't. It's just really high-grade plastic that's well painted, and that's a testament to the paint job, actually. Really quite clever. There is one piece of metal that I've kind of found down here. Interestingly, this is the only kind of QC kind of thing on mine. This is just very wobbly. It rattles around a little bit, more so in the car mode than the bot mode. So one kind of niggle there and a little bit on the screws. Overall though, the quality is exceptional, so 9 out of 10. So I'm not going to give a score in terms of scale because I don't have the reference point in my collection for movie bots, but here he is next to our pleader, just to give you an idea of size and how he stands up. So he's definitely good size, masterpiece wise. He's got the masterpiece proportions. Height, I think this is about right for me for a car bot. He is a good bit smaller though than Zeta Toys Bumblebee, so if that's a kind of reference point in your collection, you might want to consider that. But generally, I think this kind of works. This is about right for me. So as usual, I will post a separate step-by-step transformation guide. So my thoughts are that it's an interesting transformation in that it looks quite complex, but actually I don't think it is. There are quite a few areas where you're not quite sure what it is you're supposed to be moving, but that's more because of the visuals, if you like. There's so much detail and complicated looking pieces that actually once you start to move them through the transformation, you realize it's not a complex design transformation wise. I think overall, it's really quite well engineered and quite well designed, because there is space for everything. Everything tabs into place once you get it there. There are no really difficult pieces. There are a few areas around the legs where it's not quite clear which way you're supposed to be moving what, because there are lots of pieces that are on ball pegs, which is kind of typical of a movie bot, because you've got to get all these panels and move them out of the way and that kind of thing. But there are no really difficult clearance issues. There's a little bit with the gull wing doors where they stick in the middle, and you've kind of got to manipulate those and the wheels around. But if you do everything in a certain order, everything fits into place. So I think that's quite clever in that respect. So it's one of those that it's not too fun the first time you do it, but actually it's quite easy once you've done it both ways. So overall, I think it's a fun transformation once you get your head around it. But really positive is that the engineering and the design of the transformation and the way it's supported with the materials is really good. So final score on transformation, 8 out of 10. So the alt mode, it's absolutely stunning. It rolls well, really great. It looks fantastic. It's got an incredible silver paint job. It's got details everywhere. I mean, I like this. I mean, if the brake thing had kind of stayed in place, that would have been even better, but that might have been too much. But just attention to detail all over. It gives it that premium look. There's nice grill work. I think if I'd have preferred it if this was more shaded in so that you couldn't see the kind of robot gubbins through the windows. That is a niggle. And If I'm honest, some of the panels do break the suspension of disbelief a little bit, the way it connects together. But in general, it looks really, really nice. There's no kind of underhang or anything like that. You've got the feature of the gull wing doors that do open up. You kind of there's no neat place to grab them though, unfortunately. Let's see if we can just do this without breaking anything. There we go. So that's a neat feature that they do that. I mean, you're probably not going to want to display it that way because you have all of that, the junk inside, but it is neat that it does that nonetheless, because it is a kind of feature of the car, isn't it? Very much so. So overall, the alt mode I think is great. I think there are a couple of points, like I say, cleanup wise, in terms of visible panels, really quite, and probably the color doesn't help it that much. If it had been a different shade, some of that might not have been so noticeable. The paint though is really exceptional. It looks like it's going to be a chunky, made of metal kind of thing. It isn't, as I said, it's plastic, but nonetheless very premium looking. So overall, 8 out of 10. So there we have it. He gets a final score of 8.2 out of 10, and there's a lot to love about this figure. In particular, the bot mode looks sensational. The finish is absolutely incredible, and the paintwork is really quite something else. Couple that with tons of sculpted detail everywhere, it looks like it's walked off the screen. Really cracking stuff. It's got a good alt mode, but I do think the bot mode is better. In terms of the posability, I have a real issue with the feet. I think they missed a trick there. If that was more dynamic in the way that the feet moved, it would add a lot to what you can do with the character. So he has quite a static presence, if you like, on the shelf in that sense. Now, whether that's an issue for you in terms of posability, like I said, this character is quite stocky in the films and the way he moves, so you might not want him kind of doing anything dynamic. But for me, I think that's an oversight. In terms of the transformation, it's actually quite surprising because it looks daunting and it looks complicated, but it's actually quite simple, and it's really well engineered as well. Everything tabs into where it should tab in, and if you do things in the right order, it's absolutely fine. So a definite recommend from me. It's a cracking figure all around, good offering from Newage. I think it's a good start if they're doing kind of movie masterpieces. They've hit the ground running, as it were, so really good. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed the review. I have. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel, and bye for now.